when I was with Prabhupada in Los Angeles, I would drive him on the morning walk, just he and I, every morning. And one morning he would go to Venice Beach and walk at the beach. One morning he would go to Cheviot Hills Park and walk in the park. And one morning he would go to a very wealthy part of Beverly Hills and walk in the very expensive homes around a big block. So there was this one house with a large plate glass window in the front, and they had a giant German Shepherd who would always come biting at the window. So one morning as we passed, they let the dog out the front door. And he came charging across the lawn. I'm speculating they had a collar on him that had a perimeter, because he came up to the edge of the grass but didn't come onto the sidewalk. I didn't know that. And I remember my thought is, I'm going to be seriously injured or die here, and it's in Prabhupada's service, and that's okay. So the dog was running across the lawn, Prabhupada was walking with his cane, and the dog came up to the edge, so I turned around to face the dog and stay in between the dog and Prabhupada. And he was barking and snarling at me. And I was there for a few seconds, and I glanced over my shoulder, and Prabhupada had very nonchalantly just kept walking, hadn't hardly paid any attention to what was going on. And so the dog was stopped, still barking, but he was stopped. So I turned around and ran to catch up to Prabhupada, and the dog trailed me along the edge of the grass. And as I caught up to Prabhupada, he turned around and took a wide stance, like a martial arts stance, lifted his cane over his head, and said, "Hut!" And the dog's tail went between his legs. He immediately turned and ran back to the house. And I was amazed. I was amazed and not amazed also. But Prabhupada said, if you take a stick to an animal and give them a hut, they will generally, you don't have to hit them, but they will generally get the message and go on. So years later we were in India, we were in Jaipur, staying at the palace of the king of Jaipur. And in Jaipur they have, I think they're called langurs, big monkeys, Hanuman monkeys, with the real long tail. And the place that Prabhupada's quarters were was around the base of a big bathing ghat. We could see the palace across, and there was this walled bathing ghat that had been built. The ghat was in the roof. And it was a circular part. Prabhupada had a room, and then there was a covered veranda, and a small room that had been his kitchen, was his kitchen. And a monkey had torn the door off the kitchen and eaten all the boga. So they had replaced the door, and I was in Prabhupada's room within a day or so after that happening, and we always kept a stick by the door. So the room was filled with Indian guests and devotees, and we heard this rattling sound. So I looked out the door, and there was a monkey trying to take the door off this room. So I picked up the stick and went outside, and I remembered the dog. I remembered what Prabhupada had told me. So I was about 10 feet away, and he was bent over and down. So as I came up, he heard me and turned around and stood up, and I went, "Hut!" And he looked at me and puffed his chest up and bared his teeth and started walking towards me. And he was almost as tall as I was. And I turned around and ran back into Prabhupada's room. It was so strange, the human-like face, it was very strange. And I went back in Prabhupada's room and opened the door and came in real quick, and he knew exactly, and so did everyone else, what had happened. And he just broke out laughing. He laughed. He said, "You do not know the process." He said, if you had gone to him one more time, he was testing you, if you had just one more time said "hut," he would have stopped. So I got my second lesson on animal training from Prabhupada.
I remember one time I asked Prabhupada a question, are there senses in the spiritual world? And Prabhupada looked at the audience and he said, look at this little girl. She wants to go back to Godhead. And in the course of the answer, Prabhupada said, one day Krishna may kiss you. And at that, everyone in the audience laughed.
we had, Ganesham or Bhakti Swami and I we had been in the Sankirtan newsletter a lot for all these book distribution that we had in all the colleges and universities. And I guess after like a few months of reading that, I had came to the platform of impurity, like thinking, yes, we're the doer. And Prabhupada was coming to Chicago, and there were the Radha Damodar party, and he was installing so many deities. So there was about 300 devotees there. And many people, oh, Haribo Mahabhuti, you've done so well. And then Prabhupada had come, and one day, each successive day that he was there, terrible things happened. Like one morning, there was on the installation Guru Puj, there was a big Guru Puj, about 300 devotees, and myself and Ram Kali and I think Guru Kripa were dancing somewhat wildly, extremely wildly. I mean, if anyone was in the way, they'd probably be knocked down. So Prabhupada stopped the Guru Puj, and he said, Mahabhuti, what is this dancing? And he goes, that is not Vaishnava jazz. And then he turned to Brahmananda, and he said, show them, was it Gordon style, or show them Sankirtan style, whatever. And he had Brahmananda do the Swami step. And then it was like you could hear a pin drop. The artik went back on, and I remember floating back all the way to like the 301st person. And successively, Prabhupada he had a big press conference, and I noticed there wasn't a book table up there for the books, and Prabhupada always wanted to do that. So he put I put books up there, but he just told all the devotees how all of his devotees pay obeisance before they came in. And so when I came in, it was a little late because I just finished setting the thing up, and everybody was all over the place, so I didn't want to make a disturbance, so I just thought I'd slide to the back. And then Prabhupada saw me, and he went just like this, and then turned to Harikesh, and he said words that Harikesh this day wouldn't tell me. But anyways, he severely chastised me because he just told all of his disciples that bow down and pay obeisances, and then I thought it would be kind of awkward for all the camera and stuff like that for him, and I didn't do it. So I was getting smashed one thing after another. We came in the room, and he was having a personal association. It was going all through the library party man, and he was going, this is Gokulananda, and he's talking about Krishna, and this is Ganesham, talking about Krishna, and then Satsuru was, this is Mahabhuti, and he just looked at me and just, next. And so I felt like after 3 days of that I had committed so many offenses that I was ready to go jump in the Chicago River. And when I finally got to that platform and be feeling useless and that we're not the doer of any of our services, then at that point, then Prabhupada again allowed us to have his association. So Prabhupada would teach in many ways. So in the greatest feeling one could have, and many book distributors I'm sure could say that at that time, is you could feel being the instrument of Prabhupada's desire. And once you have that feeling that you actually could do, you were useful in Prabhupada's service, then there's nothing more satisfying or higher. But it was just like Krishna who would manifest with the gopis and then unmanifest if there was any sense of pride or feeling that, we've done something, you become unqualified for the association of such a pure soul. So he's teaching us lessons, not that we are not the doer. This was the mercy of Prabhupada.